Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. This is a special day as we start the next chapter in Duquesne women's basketball. At this time, I'd like to introduce the president of Duquesne University, Dr. Charles Daugherty.
Thank you all for being with us. It's an exciting day, and I'm here on behalf of all of us and the entire university community to welcome Dan Burt as our new head basketball coach for our women's team. Women's basketball is one of our most important and successful intercollegiate sports, consistently contending at the top of the Atlantic 10 Conference and appearing in multiple NIT championship games. Dan has been a critical part of that success, helping to recruit and lead 6 years of our student athletes. Their performance on and off the court has been a tribute to his leadership. He and the team will have the university's full support going forward. We wish him and the Dukes every success.
Before we move forward, I'd like to just take a moment to thank Dr. Daugherty for all his support in regards to athletics overall and the women's basketball program, and the search committee, Phil Rassicott, Shireen Brantley, and Rick Christensen, who were actively engaged in the process of filtering through a lot of information. Early on in the process, Dan and I had a quick conversation, and Dan expressed his interest to me of being the next coach at Duquesne. But as you can imagine, you get many calls, many conversations take place, and the process goes in many different directions. But as the process continued to move forward and we talked to a lot of different people who were interested in this position, the search committee continued to come back pretty consistently to one name, and that was Dan Burt. We looked at Dan's connection to the program. We looked at Dan's connection to our student athletes, who he had recruited many of throughout the process, and his interactions and his ability to engage with those individuals, support them as student athletes, and support them as basketball players. As we went through, it again became very, very clear, very apparent through the conversations, Dan's passion for who we are as an institution, for our program in general, and his desire to be the leader of this program moving forward. It was probably about 10 o'clock on Friday night when we got done, and I looked at Dan and I said, Dan, are you ready to be the next women's basketball coach at Duquesne? And he stood up and he stepped back for a moment and he said, there is absolutely no question. And his eyes lit up, and it's one of those special moments that you know you've picked the right individual. They're incredibly passionate about who we are, what he does for a living, and the student athletes who are engaged in the program and their overall success. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to introduce the next Duquesne women's basketball head coach, Dan Burt.